We begin in Hawaii as it deals with the aftermath of one of the worst natural disasters in the state's history. The governor says at least 59 people are dead after fast-spreading wildfires devastated a large area of the island of Maui. Most of the historic town Lahaina is gone. One woman and her family fled their home just ahead of the approaching flames.
We could see this blaze from miles and miles away, and the smoke. My son-in-law did try to go back and secure any other property and see what happened. When he did, he actually watched our home burn down to the ground.
Many are asking why warning sirens weren't sounded to alert residents when the fires began to rapidly spread on Tuesday. Official alerts were sent to phones and broadcast on TV and radio, but with widespread cellular and power outages, many didn't get them. The White House has declared Maui a disaster area to speed up emergency federal assistance. State officials say it will take years and billions of dollars to rebuild. The flames were fanned by powerful winds from Hurricane Dora, which passed south of Hawaii on Tuesday. The mayor of Maui County says most of the people who died were found outdoors, but that officials have not searched yet inside buildings, and he expects the number of dead is going to rise.
We have not yet searched in the interior of the buildings. We're waiting for FEMA to help with that search as they are equipped to handle the hazmat conditions. We want to reunite families. We want to give people information, whether they're family members at one of our shelters or whether they are among those that have perished. We need to get that information to our citizens.
CNN's Gloria Pazmino joins us now live in Honolulu. Gloria, let's start with the evacuees who you're meeting, those who survived the Maui wildfires and are now seeking shelter in Honolulu, where you are.
That's right, Sarah. We are standing right in front of the convention center in Honolulu, and this has been set up as a support center for people that have been evacuated from Maui. We know that at least 30,000 of them have been evacuated since Wednesday. Many of them have come here to the convention center to try and figure out their next steps. People have been arriving on local buses as they try to just settle down, figure out where they are going next. Some of those people are tourists. Some of them are trying to find other places around the islands to go to. Now, I do have some new information that we just got in the last several minutes. We heard from Governor Josh Green the death toll has now climbed to 59 people. We had heard from the governor earlier today, who told us that he expected the death toll to increase, and that is exactly what is happening. You mentioned in the opening, many of the people that have been found so far were found outside of structures. They have not yet been able to search the inside of many of these buildings that were burned to the ground. Local officials here telling us that they are waiting for FEMA to arrive on the scene to take care of some of those search and rescue operations. Sarah?
Gloria, in the conversations that you're having with those who have fled Maui and who are without homes, what are you hearing from them in terms of what it is they need?
Well, it's absolute devastation and despair. Despair from people that have lost everything. We heard from a man who was trying to flee his house. He could not get out. He was eventually forced to jump into the ocean in order to save himself. And he watched from the water as his home was burning down. So many similar stories is what we've been hearing throughout the day. People have described the lines of cars that were trying to get out of Lahaina, people that were trying to get out and simply couldn't. You mentioned the alarm systems that did not go off and that some warnings were sent to cell phones and broadcasting systems, but unfortunately the power had gone out, cell systems were down, so communication was a real challenge. So right now the air is one of despair. People are devastated, people have lost everything, and the next several days will be not just about helping them, but really figuring out a recovery operation that is likely going to take years.
CNN's Gloria Pazmino in Honolulu. Thank you. Many of the people who fled the flames in Maui got out just in time, and that includes Mākena Laurion and her family. Their home in Lahaina was among the many that were destroyed when fire gutted most of the town.
We are okay, we're safe, and that's the most important thing. All of our house and our belongings are gone, but those things can be replaced, but our loved ones can't. So we're feeling a lot of different emotions right now, both devastated and grateful to be alive.
Have you been able to process everything that you went through on Tuesday night?
Barely. It feels surreal. It absolutely feels surreal. It was, we didn't know how bad it was going to get. Since the power lines were down, we didn't have a lot of communication, so getting out of there was spotty. It was hard to understand the gravity of what was happening. We're in our house up until the fire was almost on top of us.
We've heard some criticisms about that, the fact that there wasn't more of an alert giving people a heads up, and that some really did not know how bad it was until the very last minute. What are your feelings about that?
It is, whenever something devastating happens, it's really hard to come to terms with, like, whose fault is it? Like, how do we put our anger somewhere and our blame somewhere? And I can understand why people are frustrated, because the roads were closed up until the point that we could get out. So I understand people's frustrations, and we were upset that we didn't get evacuated earlier too, and that we didn't have a lot of time to get out. But also we had no communication at all. All of our lines were down. There was no power that entire day. So it's hard to put blame on anybody, but it is upsetting that we couldn't communicate with each other. We couldn't get emergency calls or anything. Like, it was just a frantic, chaotic night.
Can you I want to go back to what you said there. The roads were closed before you could get out, and then they reopened. They were closed because of wildfires, or why?
The road was basically, all of the power lines were down. So when we eventually did get evacuated, we were ushered through a one-way to get out, and all of the power lines were in the road. So when I had driven home that day, because I had left earlier that morning to go to the other side of the island, and it was just windy. Sorry. It was just windy, and it's still windy here.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't get home, so I left my truck at the Lahaina gateway and walked home. And it was so windy and so crazy, and then that's when I started smelling smoke, and I was like, oh boy, we better get a handle on this, because this is the worst conditions for a fire possible. So the power lines were in the road. They eventually started letting people through once it was clear that we were all in danger and needed to get home. So it was
panic must have just set in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
When we eventually left the house, it was people driving in their cars, trying to get out, people running through the streets. Like, it was surreal. Yeah.
I know from my producers that you chose to go back to Lahaina. You've been back to see. We've seen the pictures. Tell me what it was like.
Well, it was, it's hard to put into words. It was really heartbreaking to come back and see the neighborhood that we've been in for so long to just be gone, and our house just completely gone. It was incredible to see that amount of destruction, and we were both, devastated of the loss, and also seeing how severe that fire was in the aftermath. We were so grateful to have gotten out of there, because if we stayed, we would have died. Absolutely. It was just that reality really hit us when we saw our house. And moments before the fire got there, we're all sitting on the kitchen floor feeling these gusts of hot wind and cars exploding, getting closer and closer, and not knowing what to do. We were kind of frozen for a while until the cops came and evacuated us out of our neighborhood. So